So the study authors, after looking at 1,000 women, what they ate, their prenatal vitamins, etc., and looking at if they were reaching levels of their nutrient goals, said this, quote, "Our study suggests that a significant number of pregnant women are not meeting recommendations for essential nutrients in pregnancy, namely vitamin D, C, A, K, and E, as well as iron, folic acid, calcium, potassium, magnesium, and choline," and this is the critical part, "even with the use of dietary supplements." So in this study of more than 1,000 women taking prenatal vitamins, what this group of doctors and PhDs noticed in measuring blood levels of these vitamins were that women were on average deficient for up to 12 of these nutrients.
Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show. I am so delighted to have Dr. Behzad Varamini and Hannah Varamini on today's show. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us, Dr. Amy. We're so excited to be here.
We're going to talk about the true facts about your prenatal. As a married couple, you guys started Tend Prenatal, which offers prenatal supplements with a twist. Hannah is an artist and startup consultant with a lifelong aversion to pills. Behzad has a PhD from Cornell in human nutrition with an emphasis on prenatal nutrition and infant brain development. After a fertility journey that included 2 pregnancy losses, they've created a business that nurtures women in all stages of fertility, pregnancy, and postpartum. Hannah and Behzad live in LA and are first-time parents to a 3-month-old baby girl. I'm so happy to have you guys on here. And I have to tell you how I found out about you. I'm not sure if you know this. I was at a conference and I saw your prenatal bars and I started eating them and I skipped the lunch. I was like, why would I eat lunch when I could have these delicious bars? Not that I'm trying to get pregnant, but they were so yummy. And I might have taken 3 more for the road, but we won't talk about that. What made you decide to start your own company?
We never dreamed that we'd actually start a business together. But when we first started trying to have a baby, we realized a couple of things. First, like you mentioned, I really could not stomach any of the prenatals out there. Then Behzad started furiously reading all those supplement labels, and he didn't like any of them. So it was this perfect collision of my problem with his expertise.
Yeah, I mean, like Hannah said, I'm reading all these labels and I just find myself disappointed. From all the training I had in nutrition, it was clear that foods were superior in so many ways to synthetic, isolated vitamins and nutrients. Actually, my dissertation, like you said, Dr. Amy, was on prenatal diet and infant brain development. So what foods and what sort of factors during the pregnancy for the mother lead to optimum development of the brain, neurocognition in the child. So we spent 3 years after watching Hannah struggle for almost 3 years as well, taking prenatal vitamins, sourcing ingredients, testing recipes, having taste testing parties at our house during the pandemic to get where we are today with Tend, which is the world's first real food prenatal in the form of a delicious snackable bar made to be enjoyed.
It really is enjoyable. I knew that for sure firsthand. And I always tell my patients, food is medicine. If you can't stomach the pills, look to food sources. But that's not so easy with everyone's really busy lives. How did you arrive at the decision to focus on a non-pill approach?
So I've struggled to swallow pills ever since I was little. And I remember my mom, she forced me to swallow these huge red vitamins and I just couldn't do it. I got really upset. She got upset. It was mildly traumatizing. I still remember it. So now, even as an adult, I despise pills. And prenatal are some of the biggest and the smelliest pills out there. And I'm not alone because I think some studies say that up to 40% of people have the same pill aversion. So as we were looking at all the options, we found that this other problem that prenatal pills were made with synthetic ingredients and synthetic nutrients. And also the powders and gummies that are also out there are not any different in terms of synthetics, and they're not any more appetizing.
Yeah, the other thing that the non-pill approach allowed us to do was just to do different things that you couldn't do with traditional prenatal vitamin pills. So the first thing that we did, we looked for ingredients that would allow us to provide all the same nutrients you'd get in a prenatal pill, but from foods. So if you look at the nutrition label and the ingredient panel on the packaging, all of our nutrients and vitamins come from fruit and vegetable powders. Broccoli, spinach, kale, pumpkin, sweet potato, sunflower seeds, oranges, apples, strawberries. These are all dried down, concentrated, and this is where all the vitamins A, D, E, B, K, they all come from these whole foods that we dry down and add into the bars of powder. Secondly, since Tend is a little bit larger than a typical prenatal pill, we can put things inside that aren't normally found in prenatal pills because you can't fit 1,000 milligrams of calcium. Those sorts of things, they just don't fit in a traditional pill. So we have nutrients in Tend that you don't typically see in other prenatals. Third, Tend has macronutrients. So, as many people know, requirements for things like protein are increased during pregnancy. I think about 70 grams is the requirement for women who are pregnant for protein. So, Tend provides in some flavors up to 10 grams of protein, fiber, healthy fats that just also give women macronutrients along with those micronutrient requirements.
That's really impressive because I'm always encouraging my patients to increase their protein intake during their IVF cycles. Even for their egg freezing cycles, I encourage protein during the process. It just helps with their physical recovery, I think, as well, post retrieval. So I'm glad you guys brought that up because I actually didn't realize that how much protein was in your bar.
And finally, because it's a bar and not a pill, we had the chance to make it tasty and fun and to replace the struggle I saw Hannah endure sort of every morning with something that she would look forward to.
So yeah, we spend a lot of time formulating and taste testing as well, because it's really important that 10 tastes like something you'd actually want to eat. So we launched with these three core flavors: chocolate sea salt, peanut butter chocolate, and lemon berry. But we also do fun seasonal flavors.
I find that there are some people in our population, not to call anyone out, but men, for example, they are the ones that complain about swallowing pills more than my female patients. So I bet that statistic that you told us about, Hannah, as far as people who can't swallow pills, I imagine maybe men are at a higher rate in that study. And so I imagine like this could be something also for men to also enjoy during the IVF cycle or even a couple months before they start to also potentially help with sperm quality because it's a great source of all the things that men need as well in their male prenatal vitamin too. And I appreciate you guys being so open about your journey. And I know sometimes it's hard to share like the really personal stuff, especially when it comes to miscarriages. But how did your own fertility journey play into your decision to create Tend Prenatal?
Yeah, it was sort of a parallel journey, actually. So we've had two pregnancy losses. The first time we got pregnant relatively quickly. We made it to around 8 to 9 weeks. I saw the heartbeat, but then we lost the pregnancy. And then a year later, we got pregnant again. We did do some genetic testing, found out there was an abnormality, but we were hopeful because it was progressing. But then the pregnancy ended in another miscarriage around 16 weeks. So it was really devastating. And I didn't know how common miscarriages are, that 1 in 4 women actually experience this. And it's such an isolating experience. You don't know who to turn to. You don't know what is emotional, what am I supposed to be feeling. So I realized through the process that, getting pregnant and staying pregnant is often just a difficult roller coaster process for so many families. And if something goes wrong, you wonder, is it my fault? Should I have done this or that? There's so much self-blame and guilt and questions and burden. So as we were thinking about creating 10, we wanted to remove that burden of guilt and have to do. There's so many have to do's as a woman who's trying to get pregnant. As it is, I have to take my prenatals. They make me feel queasy. I have to do these injections, etc. So the whole pregnancy journey is hard enough. So we really want to inject some joy into it. We want to bring something tasty that's pleasurable, but it's actually also better for you. So there was kind of this parallel journey where after years of taking those horrible prenatals, we finally launched Tend. I was able to eat the bar every day instead of take the pill. And then we got pregnant a third time, and we just had our rainbow baby girl in May.
That's very sweet. I tell you, when I ran out of those bars, I was like, where is there even like half of a bar somewhere in my purse? Because you really look forward to like, oh, I have to have my bar because it's so good.
The other thing that the years of sort of infertility allowed us to do was just to give us time to sort of examine everything and slow down and sort of, for me too, try to get healthy, get into good routines and habits because I knew that my health played a role potentially in the fertility journey as well. And again, it gave us time. We had 2 or 3 years where at the same time that we were struggling with fertility, I'm messing around in the kitchen with these ingredients. So had we got pregnant the first time and had the baby, I might not have thought to, examine what's on all these prenatal bottles and pills. And so, of course, it wasn't Tend Prenatal only. And we like to think it played some part that helped us along this fertility journey, but it gave us the time and space to just look and examine more closely at things we were putting into our bodies and just come up with a solution that I thought is, at the end of the day, for Hannah would just be more enjoyable and more nutritious.
Yeah, and you are an expert. I mean, with the PhD from Cornell in human nutrition, I'd love for you to also talk to us a little bit more about supplements and what nutrients do women who are trying to conceive or are already pregnant really need?
Well, I can tell you about the one that most everybody has heard of is folate, which is a vitamin B9, or in its synthetic form, it's called folic acid. And this nutrient is really critical in preventing neural tube defects, which is one of the first things that forms in the fetus. And it's also in a lot of prenatal supplements and fortified in food as well. And the second one that maybe is not as commonly known is choline. More than 90% of women are actually deficient in choline. And similar to folate, is critical for the development of the baby's brain and nervous system. So, taking choline has been shown to increase blood supply to the placenta, actually, which is great. And then it also affects and improves the processing speed and attention of the baby. And just a side note, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but the synthetic form of choline bitartrate has actually been shown to be potentially harmful.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many nutrients that are critical for pregnancy, along with folate and choline. I would say iron, especially it's one that's so difficult to get from the diet. I mean, iron from foods is not very well absorbed. And a lot of women struggle with getting their iron levels up. And even anemia in the US is still a problem in our country.
You mean iron from synthetics?
Iron from synthetics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even from foods, iron absorption is classically not very good from foods either. So for maximum absorption, one of the things that we did in Tend, and you see folks talk about this online on Instagram, is to take their iron from foods or in their supplements with vitamin C, which has been shown to boost iron absorption. Another one that's really important is vitamin D. Even for us living in sunny LA, Southern California, it's hard to get out and get enough sun exposure every day to get our vitamin D simply from the sun. And most prenatals that we looked at and that I've studied don't have enough vitamin D. There's actually a lot of studies out there showing that vitamin D doses that are actually much higher than the dietary sort of recommended levels are actually beneficial, safe, and tolerable in women for pregnancy. And there's one or two studies that actually show that higher doses of vitamin D, up to 4,000 IU a day, reduce the risk of preeclampsia and gestational diabetes. So knowing that vitamin D is critical and that we can't get it all from the sun, that was a nutrient that we focused on having a lot of in Tend as well. Last one I'll highlight here, and then I'm sure we'll talk more about nutrition and prenatal, is magnesium. And that's mostly because about half of women in the US of childbearing age are magnesium deficient. And magnesium is important not only for the baby's bone development and skeletal system, but it's also been shown to reduce the risk of growth restriction and increase birth weight at full term. So the list goes on, but this is probably some of the most important examples of nutrients that are either critical for pregnancy, and in many cases, women are most deficient in entering their pregnancy.
And then, Hannah, you brought something up, and I want to ask about it a little bit more about choline. And you mentioned an important distinction about prenatal choline. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so it's really the difference between synthetic choline and natural food form choline. So it comes from a recent study that I'll let Behzad, the scientist, talk about, but it's just published in spring of 2021. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm a nerd, so I'm always reading what was published about choline, folic acid, omega-3s, pregnancy, especially after starting to work on this project. So in 2021, a study was published. It was a randomized, placebo-controlled clinical trial, which, as many folks may know, is sort of the gold standard of how you do studies in human nutrition and pharmaceuticals and everything else. And what the study looked at was the synthetic form of choline, choline bitartrate, found in most prenatal vitamins and supplements, etc. And it compared synthetic choline bitartrate to choline that was found in foods. And the take-home conclusion was, and we'll summarize this in a bit, that the synthetic choline bitartrate formed resulted in elevating two risk factors that are really undesirable whether one is pregnant or not, for heart disease, for decreased blood flow, etc. So the two things that the synthetic choline bitartrate elevated in the study subjects was one, a metabolite in the blood called TMAO. TMAO stands for trimethylamine oxide. No one needs to know that, but what we do need to know is that when TMAO is elevated in the blood, then the risk for gestational diabetes and preeclampsia increases. Actually, women that have gestational diabetes and preeclampsia have elevated levels of TMAO. And outside of just pregnancy alone, TMAO has been shown to be an independent risk factor for adverse cardiac events in more than 200 studies. So just like increased serum cholesterol increases the risk for heart attack, stroke, etc., so does TMAO. When they looked at choline that was given to people from foods, and the source of choline in that case was eggs, and phosphatidylcholine, which is the kind of choline you find in sunflower seeds, nuts, etc., TMAO levels did not change. So the source of choline in this study was really important in determining if that TMAO risk factor was elevated or not, and was only elevated in that synthetic choline by tartrate. The second outcome they looked at was platelet aggregation and stickiness. And just to nerd out a little bit, some folks may know this, platelets are sort of cells or cell fragments in the blood that are necessary for our blood to sort of clot in response to injury. But when platelets are too sticky, then the risk for sort of spontaneous, unwanted blood clots increases, and you can have decreased blood flow to critical organs. So what this study found was that choline by tartrate, that synthetic form of choline, made platelets very, very sticky. And the choline that was given from both eggs and phosphatidylcholine didn't result in platelets adhering and being any more sticky than the control group. So the fact that this choline, the synthetic form, caused these chemicals and these risk factors and platelets to become more sticky just meant to me, we got to make sure that whatever's in our house doesn't have synthetic choline by tartrate in it. We got to make sure that our choline source is from foods. So our choline is sunflower seed derived phosphatidylcholine. And it also just goes to show that structure matters, right? In biology, in medicine, structure matters. And choline by tartrate has a different structure than choline in foods. And it's been understudied until this clinical trial. But what this clinical trial shows is that structure matters, and that sort of it's much more, I think, natural, and just it makes more sense to trust nutrients from foods than sort of these untested, novel, and many times structures that are used in pills, powders, gummies, etc.
Yeah, so this study was huge, and we really wish that more people would know about this clinical trial, because synthetic choline by tartrate is in many prenatal vitamins. We wish that companies using this compound would swap it out for the natural form of choline, which is of course more expensive, it's bulkier, and it's also harder to source. But this is really important to us, the adverse effects, that people know about them. And we really want to bring this up in this space. We also see prenatal vitamin companies listing their choline by tartrate as food form choline, which is actually wrong, misinformed, and misleading. So we really want to educate the consumer, the average consumer like me, who reads bottles and doesn't know what's synthetic or natural, that choline by tartrate is something you should avoid.
So it should say phosphatidylcholine on your prenatal.
Yeah, or there's some other forms as well that haven't been shown to be as adverse. There's some choline salts. There's a choline chloride. That's an example that has not been shown to have some of the adverse effects. But choline by tartrate is just so commonly available. A lot of supplement companies use it because it's also very shelf stable. So often with a pill bottle, you want something that can be stored on the shelf at room temperature for a few years, right? So you have the shelf stable version of these nutrients with a slightly altered chemical structure to support that shelf stability. So the shelf stability of choline by tartrate is largely what makes it so popular for these prenatal supplement companies.
Yeah, we really encourage people, if possible, to get their choline from food. So that means eating a lot of eggs, if you can do that, or eating a lot of nuts and seeds that are high in that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when people read my fertility treatment calendar, on there it says prenatal vitamin, and they'll just go to the store and pick up a bottle that says prenatal vitamin. I mean, obviously I make recommendations like choose Tend or something else. Is that sufficient that they just go to the store and pick up something that says prenatal vitamin on the bottle? Or are there other things that fertility patients should be considering when choosing a prenatal?
Yeah, this is a really important question. I think, like Hannah mentioned about folate in the beginning, most prenatals will have folate or folic acid. That's probably the most important nutrient to make sure women are taking, especially early in their conception journey, even before conception. And so since most vitamins and pills and powders and gummies, they have folic acid, that's a pretty good baseline. So I can't say that all the stuff out there is bad and is harmful because it's got folate or folic acid, which is a really critical nutrient, and it's helped thousands, right? Millions of women have healthy pregnancies and avoid neural tube defects. But what is worth highlighting is just, again, we keep talking about synthetic forms of vitamins versus natural forms of vitamins. In 2019, there was this editorial published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, Obstetrics and Gynecology. It was a study of 1,000 women taking prenatal vitamins. So the study looked at the diet of these women and their prenatal vitamin supplements. And so the conclusion of the study was this, and I just sort of, instead of trying to summarize it, I'm going to read it from the paper. So the study authors, after looking at 1,000 women, what they ate, their prenatal vitamins, et cetera, and looking at if they were reaching levels of their nutrient goals, said this, quote, "Our study suggests that a significant number of pregnant women are not meeting recommendations for essential nutrients in pregnancy, namely vitamin D, C, A, K, and E, as well as iron, folic acid, calcium, potassium, magnesium, and choline," and this is the critical part, "even with the use of dietary supplements." So in this study of more than 1,000 women taking prenatal vitamins, what this group of doctors and PhDs noticed in measuring blood levels of these vitamins were that women were on average deficient for up to 12 of these nutrients. So something's not working, right? You would expect a few nutritional deficiencies here and there, even in somebody eating a very well-balanced diet, but to experience and to see 12 or more nutrients deficient in 1,000 women in this study, to me, that was really eye-opening, and that just sort of got my attention. It's something we've been talking about ever since.
Yeah. So obviously not all prenatals are created equal. And some of them are simply missing nutrients that are needed, or the majority of them have synthetic forms, which are not as well absorbed by the body. So even if you're taking a prenatal vitamin, you really want to make sure that it's the right nutrients and the right forms that your body can recognize and actually use. And those are forms from food.
Yeah, and getting a prenatal is important. And, we created Tend partly to fill that gap. But we still, even when people take our prenatal, we just like to always emphasize a food first approach. So trying to eat a well-balanced diet, healthy, colorful, fresh fruits and vegetables being sort of a majority of what that diet consists of. And then using things like Tend or a prenatal supplement to help boost your nutrition throughout the day. But really, it's the diet and that food first approach that we really try to emphasize in everything that we do.
So what you're saying is you can't go get a donut, have your 10 prenatal, and then be set for the day.
You can enjoy a donut from time to time. Yeah, as we do. Our ice cream is sort of our vice there, but yeah.
So scientifically, can you explain to all of us, how are foods a better way to get nutrients?
So there was a study from Tufts University that tracked the intakes of vitamin A, K, magnesium, and zinc, really carefully measured them in folks that were taking them from supplements, and also folks from synthetic supplements, and folks that were getting them from their diet. So what they found was that the people that were getting A, K, magnesium, and zinc from their diet were less likely to die of heart attacks and strokes. People that were getting A, K, zinc, and magnesium from supplements showed no health benefit. So side by side, there's got to be something different about what's in a food versus what's in those pills. And it makes sense because from an evolutionary perspective, right, we've been on this earth for thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years. We have been eating nutrients that we extract from plants and animals. We have the right enzymes and chemicals and receptors. Our bodies have adapted and evolved alongside our environment to utilize and absorb and store the forms of nutrients found in foods. Synthetic laboratory-made nutrients don't often have the exact same chemical structures, or they're not found alongside other cofactors and enzymes that boost their absorption or their utilization. So this explains why things like vitamin E, the synthetic form, is absorbed half as well as natural vitamin E from foods. This explains why vitamin C is much more potent of an antioxidant when it's found in a food than when it's found in your emergency supplement, which I'm a fan of. It tastes good, but I just know it's not the same as eating an apple or eating an orange. So that difference in the structure and the cofactors that are found in nutrients when we eat them in foods is probably part of what explains the lack of evidence supporting these micromineral and micronutrient supplements for having that lack of benefit in these studies.
The idea that I have to actually eat an apple to get something, that takes time. And you have to take your mask off when you're working in an office. So I love the back and forth between the two of you. My husband and I, we fight. We call it fights, but I love how you guys are like, synthetic. No, it's synthetic. It's so cute.
The other thing that actually we should add to what Behzad was saying about this, the chemical structure of synthetic versus natural, is this issue of safety, because synthetic nutrients are relatively recent phenomenon, in the past several decades compared to humankind's well-being for many, many thousands of years. And these synthetic nutrients have not been studied. So we're taking these artificial vitamins, but not exactly sure what the effects are.
Mhm.
So it's easy to overdose with synthetic multivitamins or with certain nutrients, but no one's reporting overdosing on too many fruits or vegetables. You can't overdose on foods.
Totally, totally. And one of the questions that I get a lot from my patients is all about like egg quality. What supplements can I take to support or even improve my egg quality? So, I mean, with your background, I'm sure you've done a lot of research about this too and know a lot about it. What foods and or nutrients have studies shown can actually help improve egg quality?
The first thing to say, which is really important right off the bat, is that egg quality is affected by so many factors, and we don't always fully appreciate or even understand those factors, right? We know that one of the main factors that affects egg quality is just gestational age, or the age of the woman. And so it's hard to say that this one specific diet or nutrient is going to solve all of those issues. I think it's important for women who have struggled with fertility to see a qualified healthcare practitioner, an OBGYN, and to first and foremost rule out things like PCOS or other things that could be complicating their fertility journey. But since we're here to talk about nutrition, I'll tell you some of the studies that we've looked at, and I'll try to summarize some of those. The first one, or the nutrient that I've seen some studies show promise for egg quality, are omega-3 fatty acids. A paper from 5 or 6 years ago from Harvard Medical School, the study was done at Massachusetts General Hospital, showed that egg quality was improved when dietary omega-3 fats were increased in the woman. Dietary omega-6 fats, however, in the same study actually showed a reduction in egg quality. So omega-3 sources of fat include fish oil, algae oil, and to a lesser extent, though still healthy, flaxseed oil, plant-based sources of omega-3 also healthy. Omega-6 fats aren't necessarily unhealthy nutrients, but they're ones that we in the US consume too much of in general at a higher rate than is necessary. Those are what we typically think of are the fats found in sunflower oil, corn oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, etc. They're not necessarily bad, but they're overconsumed, and in this study were shown to be associated with a reduction in egg quality. And so the study authors concluded that omega-3 fats helped egg quality and omega-6 fats hindered egg quality. And this was specifically looking at women who are undergoing assisted reproductive technology. So speaking of egg quality, they were looking at women undergoing things like IVF and what dietary factors improved egg quality and sort of fertility outcomes as far as that is concerned. Their conclusion was that for every 1% increase in serum or blood levels of omega-3, the probability of clinical pregnancy increased, or they call it a live birth, increased by 8%. So it's not easy to increase your serum omega-3 by 1%. That's actually quite a bit of omega-3. That's quite a few servings of salmon per week, but it is attainable. And the fact that this happened in an ART study of women undergoing IVF is sort of applicable, I think, to that question.
I mean, you're telling me about an increased live birth rate of 8%. I just want to go out and just find salmon somewhere and give it to all my patients when they start their cycle with me. That's impressive.
Very promising again for improved egg quality is antioxidants. So as we age, all of our cells, including eggs, are prone to increased oxidative stress, which is really just this imbalance between these oxidative free radicals that our bodies produce as sort of a natural part of metabolism and the body's ability to fight those oxidative free radicals with things like vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. So there's a lot of antioxidants that are out there. Vitamin C is an antioxidant, vitamin E is an antioxidant, but this one study in particular looked at an antioxidant found in tuna and spinach and salmon and beans called N-acetylcysteine, or NAC. So in this study, NAC was shown to preserve egg quality by stabilizing egg DNA. So they looked at a bunch of different ways that egg quality was improved in the study. DNA was stabilized, and the egg cell's mitochondria was stabilized and was sort of higher in number. So more mitochondria for a woman's egg, and almost for any cell in the body, is generally a good thing. And so NAC, the N-acetylcysteine, improved mitochondrial quality and number, and also DNA integrity in eggs.
Can I ask you a quick question? What are some good food sources for NAC?
So NAC is found in a lot of beans, especially lentils are an amazing source of NAC. Tuna, salmon, and a lot of things that are green. So spinach is the best, as far as greens are concerned, source of NAC, but you can also get it from kale. Swiss chard and rainbow chard are also excellent sources of NAC.
Is there anything else that people can focus on when it comes to egg quality?
One more, and it's sort of a surprise. Melatonin. So we think of melatonin as that thing you pop when you're having trouble falling asleep and you're traveling to get over jet lag. But melatonin actually has some antioxidant type properties that are able to protect cells as well. So in a 2008 study, melatonin was co-administered with vitamin E, and that led to increased fertilization rates in IVF patients. And all these studies that we talk about, if we want to post them later on for folks to look at, read about, I'm happy to share all these studies for people that want to go a little bit deeper.
Oh, I imagine my patients would love to see the study. So we'll definitely link them to the article that will go with this interview for sure.
That's great. And then the other one that we wanted to mention, which is more commonly recognized or known, is Co Q10. So the data is mixed on effectiveness, but what is clear is that Co Q10 levels in the egg decrease as women age. So getting more Co Q10 is a really good way for women to ensure that their cells have enough of that nutrient.
And are there any particular foods that people can consume more of to get more Co Q10?
Great question. The foods that have the most Co Q10 are actually meats, animal meats. So if you're into liver, that's got the most Q10. It's got even more than muscle. But steaks, meat, red meat actually has more than chicken and pork, are probably the best dietary source of Co Q10. If you're a vegetarian or vegan, it's much tougher to get it from foods. It is present in beans, lentils, soybeans, etc. But to get the amount that is in most supplements, 200, 300 milligrams of Co Q10, is really hard to get from food unless you're eating a big slab of red meat sort of every day.
I got it. And are there any foods, because I get this question a lot, is there anything that I'm eating that could harm my fertility? So what would you tell a patient like that?
Yeah, I think just like, of course, healthy foods have been shown to assist in fertility, there's been studies that have looked at what foods can hinder that fertility process. So it'll initially sound just unsatisfying, but unhealthy diets high in processed foods, saturated fats, red meat, potatoes, sweetened sugary beverages, those have been shown to result in poor egg quality in couples undergoing IVF. They also looked at fast food consumption. This is a study from more than 10 years ago now, but it probably still holds true today that those fast food consumption 3 or more times a week resulted in decreased egg quality, and similarly low fruit and vegetable consumption resulted in decreased egg quality compared to women that were on healthier diets.
Got it. I'm glad you said 3 times a week, because so many of my patients, I call it an internet fad, where they drive from their procedure and they go right to McDonald's for their fries. It's comforting for sure, but your McDonald's fries aren't going to hurt you. It's just one time.
Yeah, and we like to have fun and get burgers and fries and ice cream once in a while too. So
just not every day.
Not every day. And there's also some non-dietary factors. I mean, I just read this study a day or two ago, but there's about 10 or 12 studies actually that look at pesticide exposure and how that can cause complications for fertility, disrupt timing of egg release, and decrease egg quality. So a lot of dietary stuff, but just to also bring up pesticides, it's just sort of your environment, and even things like stress have been shown to sort of affect fertility rates in women that are undergoing IVF.
So, I mean, I wish I could just have you on a loop in my office, because like everything that you're saying is just so impressive and you're data driven. And, I feel like I can really share this information out with my patients and say like, well, Behzad and Hannah say this, so it has to be true. So we have to have you come back on like every 6 months and give us an update about what's in the literature for sure. So we talked a little bit about egg quality right now. And the other question I get is this, like, is there anything I should be doing to improve my chances of having a healthy implantation? So tell us more about that from a nutrition standpoint.
Unfortunately, in the world of nutrition, there's not as many studies that sort of tease apart what dietary factors promote implantation. But given what we know about implantation and given some of the animal studies that are out there, we sort of have some clues as to what may benefit. There's one in particular that's worth sharing. So levels of dietary protein in animals has been shown to be associated with increased success of implantation. Namely, there are specific amino acids, and the one in particular that I'm highlighting here is arginine. So arginine is an amino acid. There's a bunch of amino acids. They're found in all the proteins that we eat. They make up proteins. Arginine is found in almonds and nuts at higher levels than in other foods. But it was arginine in this study specifically that showed increased microvasculature in the endometrial lining when it was consumed at high levels, and therefore increased success of implantation in an animal model, again, not a human study. And the way that arginine works is that it's a precursor to a molecule called nitric oxide. And getting nerdy here, but what nitric oxide does is it dilates blood vessels and it sends more blood to the tissues and organs of interest where that arginine is present. So diets higher in arginine caused blood vessel dilation. That meant in this study, more blood delivered to the endometrium, which resulted in a higher rate of success in that IVF mouse model. So arginine it means more protein. Protein deficiency can be a problem, I think, in women undergoing ART. So making sure that they get enough protein to support healthy endometrium and just healthy physiology is the takeaway I have there.
Yeah, very cool. And when we first started talking earlier today, we talked about omega-3. And I would love for you to just share a little bit more about omega-3 and some things that we may not know about omega-3 throughout pregnancy.
Yeah, I'm glad people are so aware of omega-3 now. I think more than they've been ever before. They're demanding it in their prenatal, and it's in so many prenatals now, which we love to see. But it does a lot more than just assist in the baby's brain development, which is what it's most commonly known to do. Omega-3s are actually anti-inflammatory molecules. So your body can take omega-3 fats through a 1 or 2 step chemical conversion, convert them into compounds that slow down inflammation. So inflammation, especially excessive inflammation, is harmful, not only to pregnancy, but just to overall health in general. You've heard of the term maybe chronic inflammation, right? We want to avoid chronic inflammation. And so omega-3 sort of act like an anti-inflammatory molecule in the blood to reduce inflammation systemically. Secondly, not all omega-3s are created equal. The omega-3s that you see in most of your prenatal supplements are DHA, sometimes, and also very important, EPA. These are long chain, long molecule omega-3s. They're found in fish, algae, marine foods, and oils. They're actually a little bit different biologically than omega-3s found in plants. So you can also get omega-3 from flax seeds, sunflower seeds, pistachios, but they're a little bit different from, and they don't quite do the same thing biologically as omega-3s that you get from fish oil or algae oil or from marine sources. Those omega-3s from plants don't make their way into the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex of the baby. They're not as desirable for the brain as the omega-3s found in fish oil, marine foods, etc. Finally, in addition to brain development, DHA has also been shown to help reduce early preterm birth and result in healthier birth weight. These are 2 studies that we can link again for the audience. DHA is a really powerful modulator of especially healthy full-term birth weight in babies. And further, there's a few studies, and I thought this was worth mentioning, that show that DHA also supports postpartum mental health and reduces postpartum depression. So because of all this stuff, and because DHA was literally the first word in the title of my dissertation, we have DHA, of course, in the prenatal at ACOG recommended levels, just to make sure that women are getting that omega-3 that they need to support their pregnancy.
Yeah, and that's 300 milligrams, because if you look at prenatal, some of them include them, but they're not at high enough levels.
So having a 10 bar isn't just for pregnancy. You can also continue postpartum as well to help with your own postpartum health. So I would love for you to kind of share with us more about what you think people are missing in pregnancy from a nutrient standpoint.
So we mentioned that study where the nutrients were missing, and these 4 nutrients are the ones that are missing the most. So these 4 nutrients include choline, which 90% of women are deficient in. Iron is 84% of women are deficient in iron. And as the study showed, nearly 40% of women are still deficient even if they take a prenatal. So you really need to take iron that is absorbed and bioavailable. Vitamin D is another nutrient where 90% of women are deficient from their diet, and most prenatals actually don't include it or don't have enough. And finally, magnesium. 50% of women are deficient in this nutrient, even while taking a prenatal.
Wow, you're making me want to do a nutrient panel now on my patients as part of their new patient workup, knowing these statistics so that I can hopefully help them get pregnant as quickly as possible and stay pregnant as well. So in addition to Tend, what other ways can, women meet those needs when they're missing those nutrients?
With our product and our company Tend, it's always a food first approach. So yes, we recommend our prenatal, but the foods that are going to help fill those gaps are often healthy, whole fruits and vegetables, whole grains, eating a colorful diet, sort of this phrase of eat the rainbow. That's what we try to tell people, our friends, our family members who are going through a fertility journey. It's interesting that different colors in fruits and vegetables are actually produced by different pigments that different vitamins leave. So, vitamin A, you've heard of beta carotene, that's got this yellow orangey pigments. That's what gives carrots their color. Vitamin E, that's why sunflower oil, extra virgin olive oil, etc., is green or yellow because it's got vitamin E. So, if you're eating a colorful diet, you're already like sort of winning on nutrition because so many of the nutrients that we eat, vitamins and minerals, impart that beautiful color, especially to fresh fruits and vegetables.
And in addition to, physical health, we want to also recognize that mental, emotional health are intertwined, and fertility is really a difficult journey, often a roller coaster. So we really also like to talk about community, the importance of exercise, doing something that's good for your own mental well-being, having support and friendships. There's so much more than nutrition, although that's our focus, because we know that conceiving, getting pregnant, staying pregnant, it's a hard process. So we've learned along with our journey how important all of these various factors are. Support on a nutritional standpoint, but also mental, emotional, spiritual. And so we have a lot to be thankful for. We've had a great community that has supported us in our pregnancy losses, but also in the launch of our business. And we're so thankful to be connecting with people like you as well. And we're really excited now that we're a family of 3 and launching Tend and getting into the hands of more women. We believe it's just the beginning.
I love it. Well, thank you for all your work. And thank you for doing such an amazing job, just kind of breaking all the important things that people need to know about prenatals and nutrients they need in pregnancy and what they're missing to just improve birth outcomes, maybe even fertility rates, live birth rates, and my fertility patients as well. So thank you again for coming on today.
Awesome. Thanks so much.